With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Circumcision is no laughing matter, I say as I chuckle before getting into this article. But no, seriously, circumcision in my mind is no laughing matter, and it's one that I've yet to, in my nearly 36 years of existence, ever heard what I consider to be a valid argument for keeping it around. I'm sorry, I've never been able to hear one. Oh, it's cleaner. Oh, it makes it so you clean. Well, you pull back the foreskin and need to wash with some warm soap and water. It's really not that hard to deal with. Right. But circumcision, hell, foreskin in general is a gigantically taboo topic, one that it's hard to have. I mean, it's like you go into sex ed in school and they just barely cover the foreskin. Right. They barely cover it. It's like, well, when young men are born, they have an extra flap of skin on the head of the penis. That's called the foreskin. It is then removed via circumcision, and therefore you lose 20,000 nerve endings on the head of your dong. They don't say that. They just kind of cut it and then they run to the next topic. Pun intended. But here we've got Iceland doing something that is insanely crazy to me, where they are actually intending to ban boys' circumcision, and they're going to be introducing a 6-year jail term for offenders. To that, I can simply only go, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Look, I just had a daughter, and my girlfriend and I were talking about it. If our daughter would have been a son, there's no way we would have got him circumcised. Like, we both agree that, you should come out the way that you were born. And never mind the fact the women's facial cream, that market very much likes foreskin for the enzyme that's in there. So yeah, whenever your mom, by the way, if you happen to have if you're kind of on the fence of circumcision and like your mom got you circumcised or she was all pro it or whatever, and she uses face cream at night, yeah, that's got the tips of baby dicks in it. Not like literally, there's an enzyme extracted. Anyway, it says, while many Americans may be circumcised largely as a result of the prevalent Judeo-Christian tradition in the country, that isn't the case everywhere else. And if a new law passes in Iceland, circumcisions in the country will become just not rare, but illegal. Yeah, I know. In America, it's a big thing here. People, they talk about it like it's a rite of passage. Like, oh, were you circumcised? I remember when I was circumcised. No, you don't, but you don't remember that at all. But it's like the idea there is like, if it's two camps of men. And oftentimes American men don't understand the difference. I remember the first time I got into a conversation about being circumcised or uncircumcised, and my friend Danny made the comment to me. He's like, I'm circumcised. Are you circumcised? And I said, I don't even know what that is. I think we're in like 4th grade. And he goes like, well, when you pee, when you're circumcised, you don't dribble at the end. That's what he said. He said, when you pee, you dribble if you're uncircumcised. And I'm like, what do you mean by dribble? Well, essentially just it coming out of the tip and then going, that's the whole notion, is what he's trying to say. I didn't understand it at the time, but as an adult, I think back and still think it's a horrible description, but that's how my first interaction with it was. But again, people here, we don't talk about it. We never discuss it, I've been with a girl who actually broke up with me because I'm uncircumcised. She did not know how to handle it. That's the kind of taboo I'm talking about here. When it created a literal panic with this girl that I was dating because she did not know what to do, and it freaked her out. So it might also push my anti-circumcision agenda a little bit, because I don't want anyone to feel the way I did when she broke up with me, and that was a reason why she gave me. All I'm saying is I'm ribbed for her pleasure. So that's the whole point we're going to get to. Anyway, a new proposed legislative amendment would ban the practice of childhood circumcision, making circumcision of a child illegal and punishable by up to 6 years in prison. The bill, which is supported by members from at least 5 different political parties, including, among others, the Pirate Party, the Left Green, and the Progressive Party, all parties I would assume to be behind this, calls for amendments to the current criminal code in the country. In fact, the proposition or the proposed legislation clearly says here, anyone found removing sexual organs from a child or woman in whole or in part shall be jailed for 6 years. So it's not just boy circumcision. It is female genital mutilation as well. And that is something that here in I guess you could say the Western world or whatever, that topic comes up quite a bit. And when you sit there and say, well, you should also ban circumcision, the response back to that is like, whoa, those things are entirely two different things. And half and half. I'd give you half and half. But there were like 14 cases. There was like 250 cases or something of female genital mutilation that happened in a Minnesota town like last year. And it was this big upset with people who are anti-circumcision. But then again, it was all done in predominantly Muslim communities. And no one even batted an eye about it on the nationwide level. And I think they should have, for one, because circumcision of any kind is wrong. It's just wrong. Unlike many health and public safety laws in the United States, there isn't an exemption on religious grounds, as the draft makes clear, saying while it is certainly the rights of the parents to give their children guidance when it comes to religion, such a right can never exceed the rights of the child. And again, that is true. I think it's one of those things where it's like there's a movie called 28 Days with Sandra Bullock where she goes to rehab, and there's a line in there about asking if you could get one thing back, what would it be? And this one guy says, my foreskin. He's just like, I never gave my parents permission to take it. And I think that's a pretty apt line. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but because these children never give their parents permission to snip and clip. And that is something that is never even remotely looked at from the point of view of the child. Well, it's like maybe the child ultimately doesn't want to have that part of their body removed. Have you ever thought about that? Oh, well, the culture or the religion or blah, 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 blah. No. Screw that noise. Screw that noise. I'm sorry. I completely support the idea of banning it. Now, this is part of a growing trend in Europe, as Danish doctors have recently also spoken out against childhood circumcision, saying here that circumcision involves permanent interventions into a child's body that can cause severe pain. Also, such an operation involves the risk of infections and other problems, which is absolutely true. Now, in, let's say, like Jewish culture, the Jewish religion, there's a type of circumcision. I forget what it's called, but it's like the rabbi, the moil, ends up kissing the head of the penis. And in New York City, the two babies, two infants died from contracting herpes from that exchange, from that particular moil. So at this point, you can literally argue in some cases that circumcision has killed, right? And yet it's still a practice that is heavily pushed in the United States, and one that is looked at as being utterly taboo and not worth actually having a discussion on. Now, as a result, the bill states that while the child may eventually decide they want to be circumcised, they cannot do so until the age of consent. To understand what is involved in such action in Iceland, the age of consent is 15. And that, I would say push it to 18, simply because I don't think a 15-year-old fully understands the idea behind it. But at the same time, they are more well equipped at that point in time to understand their own body and their own needs than their parents were when they were 2 weeks old. While the rate of circumcision in Iceland is currently rather low, it's not unheard of, and there is still some debate surrounding the issue, and not just Iceland. In addition to Danish doctors who have previously spoken out against circumcision, there is also a movement underway in Norway as the Progress Party, the country's third largest party, more commonly known for their anti-immigration policies, chose to support a bill outlawing childhood circumcision before the age of 16. And now the problem with that necessarily is that what you're going to see are the pro-circumcision types that come back and they say like, oh, well, this is an anti-immigration organization, a very, very nationalist organization, because it's in Norway, predominantly white, so they'll use white nationalists. So white nationalists are against circumcision. And since circumcision happens in a lot of Middle Eastern countries and the Middle Eastern cultures, so on and so forth, Islam and Judaism, you're going to see a lot of that being used as anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, fodder. When ultimately they're just supporting, hey, don't snip and clip your boy, right? Like before the age of 16. But it's again when political activists try using that as a way to deflect from any valid or rational argument they themselves might make. And that's just kind of where we are in our society, and it's crap. So while it remains to be seen if the bill in Iceland can pass, there's certainly some momentum behind it. But what do you think? Should circumcision be illegal until a child is old enough to fully decide for themselves, or do parents have the right to make that choice for their child? And today, this is kind of an odd comparison, but it's one that comes to mind. So a couple years ago, I did a story about a teenage girl in Austria who was suing her parents over photos they posted of her as a child on Facebook. Now, I argued that because the parents took the pictures, they therefore own the pictures, and the child's under the age at that time, and they were their guardian, therefore they could sign off on the consent. Other people have argued that the privacy laws are different in Austria and even some places here in the United States. So if you take that logic in mind, could a child of age technically sue their parents because they were circumcised without giving proper consent. Now, if you want to break down like the social norm of circumcision, at least here in the West, that would be a very interesting take on the subject, where someone old enough who did not want to be circumcised or later regrets the act of his parents doing that sues them for emotional damages. I mean, that would be a very interesting scenario, to say the very least, and one that I'm very curious to see if it ever does come to fruition. But that being said, I actually really do hope that Iceland passes this thing, because circumcision takes away part of a child's body that they gave no consent to give, right? And that is not right, nor is it just or fair. Especially if you believe in equality and you believe that everyone has the right to their own bodies. So I'm hoping that they ultimately do, in fact, make it illegal, and I hope that it spreads through the EU, and I hope that eventually it makes its way here to the United States, because this would be the last fight, the last bastion for ending circumcision. And I mean, will it happen? Probably not, but I would definitely be out there protesting and collecting signatures and advocating for the ending of the practice. Because it's a huge industry, and when foreskin enzymes are used in women's facial cream, and we see a lot of that still happening here in the United States in terms of circumcisions happening and the social norm of it, but no one says anything about hurting the children because it's cleaner, it makes their penis more aerodynamic, right? But it does a lot more at the same time. They don't experience sex the same way down the road. They have 20,000 nerve endings that are gone. They don't get to experience it in the same fashion. You have situations where they over circumcise or under circumcise. I have a friend who's over circumcised. Takes him forever to finish. Trust me, his girlfriend has complained enough about that over the years. But the idea there is that he has a desensitization issue, whereas people who are uncircumcised don't have that problem. And is that fair to him? Ultimately, no. But there's nothing he can do in order to fix it. So all we can do now is try to protect other boys from the same fate.